It's powerful, fairly affordable, and extremely off-road capable, making this one of the most fun trucks that I've ever driven. Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's a 700 horsepower F-150. But more importantly, it's the Apex edition. It's basically the more reasonable and more affordable version of the Raptor R. And today I get to share all the good, the bad, and the ugly of this Roush Supercharged F-150 to help you decide if this might be the right truck for you. So you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And big thanks to Goody Motor for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested. They're a great group to work with. Otherwise, let's dive right in with this review. But if you're new to the F-150, Ford actually first put these out back in 1948, only 3 years after World War II ended. Fast forwarding to today, and we're currently in the 14th generation of these trucks. This gen started in 2021, and although 2024 did have the mid-generational refresh, which in typical fashion for vehicle manufacturers is to update the headlights, the grille, and a few interior bits, it's still the same truck since 2021. You will notice this one has a Maroni sticker right there. This is actually a carryover 2023. But if you're curious about the Apex package, how it handles, how it drives, how fast it is, or the Roush Supercharger, then this is probably a video for you, because you're not alone. About 1 million of these F-150s are sold globally. They're sold in Canada, the United States, and Mexico, but they're homegrown if you're from the United States. These are assembled in Michigan and Missouri's assembling plants. And while Roush is a very reputable and well-known tuning company, they first came to Ford back in 1995, starting with the Mustang, or the SN95 Mustang as it was known as, and then they started with the F-150s in 2004. But for 2024, there's actually 8 trim levels of the F-150 offered this year, starting out at about $36,000. That's for a 2-door, 2-wheel drive basic work truck. So that's pretty pricey, although that is cheaper than the average new car these days at $48,000. That's still a pretty penny. This one specifically is the XLT, and the one that this is built off of, it started as a $47,000 truck for the cab, the configuration you see here, but it has a bunch of goodies, putting the base truck MSRP into the 60s, and then you tack on about $9 grand for the Roush Supercharger kit, and quite a bit more for the Apex package, which does come with really legit Fox suspension, 35-inch BFG wheels, and tires, and it's a pretty penny, but still, this is tens of thousands of dollars cheaper than, say, the Raptor R that I drove for you guys last year. And is it worth it? Well, it depends who you're asking. It likely won't have the same resale value as a trim level truck such as the Raptor R. But honestly, if you're just going to drive it till the wheels fall off, this might be the better option for you. Or if you're just buying this, or you want just the Roush Supercharger to build maybe a race truck, that's a great option. You can get the 36-month, 36,000-mile warranty from the factory with this Supercharger kit. And it wasn't very long ago that a 700 horsepower vehicle for as little as maybe 50 grand in a regular cab configuration would have been mind-blowing to the generation before us, like say 25 years ago. But here it is, under $100,000, over 700 horsepower, and extremely off-road capable. A typical Super Crew F-150 like this is about 19.3 feet long. The bed is about 5.5 feet long on this one, but the wheelbase is about 12 feet. So it's actually pretty planted, pretty stable on the road, especially where this is about 6.5 feet wide. But because of it being about 6.25 feet tall, you do got to be careful going around corners, especially because this big boy of a truck weighs probably about 5,500 pounds with all the goodies, I would guess. And its payload capacity, which I am thankful that Roush updated the door jamb sticker after doing the suspension and wheel kit, it's still about 1,365. So you can carry 1,300.5 pounds of your favorite people and stuff between the bed and the interior of your F-150. This has roughly a foot of ground clearance below the axles, and a final drive ratio of either 331 or 355, depending on which configuration you go with. And it can do a full circle in about 51 feet, which isn't great, but that's average for a full-size truck. I wonder if those tires would fit on this Roush F-150. The last few things to mention out here is the gas door is located on the driver's side. Thankfully for 2024, Ford is giving every F-150 the 36-gallon tank, but it's still not locking, so the bumps can attempt to siphon your fuel. And if you're supercharged, keep in mind you need premium fuel, and you can't put E85 ethanol gas in this. But anyways, it's a 36-gallon tank, so a regular 5-liter F-150 probably realistically gets about 20 mpg, so your max road trip and range is over 700. But this one, with the wheels and tires, you're maybe going to get up to 14 if you're driving it conservatively, so your max road trip and range might be about 500 miles, because these are 35-inch tall. by 12.5-inch wide, 20-inch wheel BFGs. So there's a lot of meaty sidewall there. There's a lot of tread depth, and you can see the suspension out back and the disc brakes in there too. It's a really nice looking package in person. But this is your key. It's a typical Ford key with remote start. So if you double click the lock, you double click and hold the remote start. The side mounted exhaust roars to life. It sounds fairly good. It's not overly loud. You could always do that a little bit louder in the aftermarket, but it's pretty good. And then this does have the typical Ford key code to get in and proximity key features to lock and unlock the vehicle. But the driver's side door panel, although it's a lot of black materials, it looks really nice. You have a pretty thick armrest that you can actually use. Nice Ford handle. You have the cutout for visibility, a little bit of a graphic right there. But really, it's not that much different than any other fairly loaded out F-150. Huge bottle holder, you have the upper tray, which I appreciate. And then you have the huge running board, if you guys didn't already see that. It's electric, and it's cool, and it's pretty quick. I like that it tucks out of the way so you don't lose any ground clearance under this truck. You can see the frame right there. But otherwise, typical F-150 rubberized mats, hood release, rubberized pedals, OBD2 port plugged in, and you do have electronic parking brake. You can move the pedals, your lighting options, your mirror adjustments, and everything like that. And then here is the leather seat. It is powered and heated, and it feels good. You also have a little bit of storage right there. Sitting inside the F-150, it's honestly really nice. Leather-wrapped wheel, leather seats. My backpack's having a good time, and it's comfortable. There's also fantastic visibility. Look how big the windshield is. And, you know, all the doors, they have the cutout on the front for Ford trucks like they have for well over a decade. And it's comfortable. It's easy to find a nice driving position and access everything that you need to. The wheel does not appear to be heated. The horn, typical F-150, sounds fairly good. You have all your buttons, your controls for the center display. And when we fire it right up, you get a little bit of a graphic. Roars right to life. And if we were just turning this on for the first time, you'd even get a little bit of a 75-year anniversary display from 1948 to 2023 up on the screen. But overall, you can turn off auto start stop. You can turn off traction control, your camera buttons right there. You can keep that on while you drive, which I honestly think is a really cool feature. I really like the Ford cameras. I don't know if the clarity is as good as the Silverados, but it's still pretty nice. B&O speakers up top, some storage, and trailer brake, your drive modes for 2 high, 4 high, 4 low. Physical climate controls, like you guys know I enjoy, versus controlled through the display, which, you know, is usually slow and laggy on a lot of manufacturers. I think a lot of people are going to be using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay when they buy something like this. But you have a USB, USB-C, tons of storage, and then the Roush, you know, a little bit more information about your Roush charged truck. Otherwise, you can lower the handle. You do see the plus and minus. That's basically the equivalent of your paddle shifters. Manual mode right there if you want to access that. You can store some pencils right here. You can store some drinks, and then it has a pretty big center console with a lifty tray that holds some coins. And there's even a plug-in at the base down here. So that's pretty cool. I love how big the center console and the storage area is on Ford trucks. Sunglass holder, some LED lighting. And interestingly enough, there's no lighting on this. And does it slide? I think it does. Yes, it does. That's good. And then you have the Bluetooth speaker up top. But with that said, let's turn it off and let's hop in the back. And sitting behind the driver's seat, the door panel has all the same design language. You even have the upper tray and a huge full-size bottom B&O speaker advertised, and you have a B-pillar handle. But it's really nice that the running board extends out to here, and really nice leather seats that are easy to lift, the 60 split, and then the 40 split over there, even easier to lift that one. But climbing up, I always feel like modern full-size trucks feel like I'm sitting in a living room. I have that much room in front of my knees. I have a mat pocket so I can be a backseat driver when I'm getting chauffeured around. Cup holders to myself, ventilation, some plugins. But I'm not seeing an armrest. I'm not seeing anything that folds down because this is just part of the 60 split. But overall, really nice. Here you can see some of the LED lighting like I mentioned was up front. And I can't complain. It's right in the back. I probably even have about 2 inches above my head at 5'11". But I personally think the back of the F-150 looks mighty good, especially if you're going to take this to the drag strip. That's the view a lot of people are going to see. And thankfully, Ford paid a lot of attention to making this look really nice. I do like that the paint matched fenders stick out quite wide to conceal those tires basically completely flush for the most part, at least the upper half of the wheel. And having the Roush on the window just makes it look that much more like it's a sleeper. You know, if you don't know what Roush is, you think that's just some random dude. Jack Roush is nothing more than some bloke, then you're not going to know what you're, getting left behind with. Anyways, if you're feeling lazy, drop the tailgate with the remote. It's slow, but it's powered, at least to lower, not to lift. And I wish Ford would give us spray and bed liners for free, at least with every trim level. And when the base truck starts at $36,000, for that price, you think that they might include that from the factory, and that might even be a cheaper alternative than painting it this avalanche color, because paint is not cheap either. But this is a tall truck, and the truck bed is very tall as well. So if you need a step and you didn't bring your own stool, you can lower it right there. You can pull out the handle, and it's easy to do. You also have the ruler, the yardstick, all your measurements. You have Ford listed right there in case you forget what you're sitting behind or on the tailgate of, and you can hold a bowl of soup or a cup of orange juice right there. Otherwise, it's really nice back here. You do have a pretty decent outlet right there with a power switch. You have lighting, some tie downs throughout on each corner, and overall it's a pretty nice view. I just wish the rear view window that opened automatically with, electronic controls, I wish that was bigger, or almost like the Tundra window that just drops completely down. I think that's a really cool feature, and I wish other trucks did that as well, but maybe it's patented. Otherwise, this does not lift up on its own, so I'm gonna have to work hard with my truck to lift that up off camera. And if you're fortunate enough to ride shotgun, keep in mind you still have proximity key features there to lock and unlock. But even the shotgun seat rider gets really nice options. All the same materials, soft touch, upper tray, B&O speaker. You even have more storage than the driver because you don't have some of those extra controls, which I think is really cool. The running board again extends the whole length. The backpack is comfortable on the heated leather seat. The bolstering is not overly aggressive, so it's going to fit a lot of people really well. Just don't take a corner too fast because it's not going to keep you in place if you do corner too quickly. But Ford again is listed right there on the seat in case you forget what you're sitting in, I guess. And then you have some power controls right there. You also have the really nice trim pieces up here that are painted, and then the storage on the transmission tunnel. Locking storage right here with the glove box. It's adequately sized, but unfortunately, there's no plugins. And then you have the hidden upper storage right there. What are you guys going to hide in here? Keep it legal. It's pretty deep, actually, but comment below what you want to hide in there. Anyways, guys, let's come around to the front so I can pop the hood and show you what the Apex F-150's Roush Supercharged blower looks like. Under the hood, Ford did a really good job designing this. You have air induction that comes through the grill and through the big filter right there. That sounds fantastic. Huge ducting to get into the supercharger through the throttle body. It is a pretty big truck, so I am having to stand on my tippy toes. I can't quite see the exhaust manifolds, and because the 5-liter Coyote is not a pushrod engine like the Hemis and the LSs, it's actually a pretty big, physically large motor for only being 5 liters. But the Roush blower with a pretty big pulley on the front, it looks good, and you can see it's really tucked in there pretty far. But overall, it makes about 705 ponies at about 6,500 RPM because these 5-liter Coyotes, they like to rev out. And about 635 foot-pound-feet of the twisty stuff, that comes on around 4,000 RPM. But anyways, guys, a lot of accessible stuff up here. All of your reservoirs up top, your battery, your fuse box in the corner. Anyways, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the Roush Supercharged F-150. Lots of wheel spin. It's a little bit bouncy with these huge 35-inch tires. But when you're not on the throttle, it's composed. It's figuring out which of those 10 speeds does it want to be in. And it's smooth. It's actually really smooth driving down the road. I have fantastic visibility, as mentioned before, and my backpack is still comfortable, having a good time. And you can take the whole family with you because the interior of this F-150 is huge. But I forgot to film a time lapse full circle. So let me show you guys right here what this looks like doing a full circle, and just how snug and sketchy of a maneuver this can sometimes be. But it's not specific to this truck. It's any full-size truck. They just don't turn well. They usually take about 14 more feet than like a crossover or performance car. And rolling onto the throttle, it feels good. The B&O speakers in here sound really well for what they are. I wish that was the factory speaker, not an upgrade that you had to pay for, but they're gonna be pretty good in here. There is a lot of glass, and even though today we had quite a bit of wind and I had to use a different microphone that I don't prefer the sound of that one, and of course it doesn't show the trees are dancing around that much, but there's really not that much noise that protrudes into the interior. And these big BFG tires really aren't kicking up any rocks on this country road. So overall, I don't have very many complaints. I think this is a smooth riding road. I've said it before that the Raptor R is probably the smoothest truck I have ever driven with how its suspension and its sidewall and massive 37-inch tires were. The T-Rex is pretty smooth, and I'd put this more in the T-Rex category of it's pretty smooth. I feel a little bit like if I climb up a sidewalk, I can feel that a little bit more than I was expecting to for the size of this truck. But overall, it's really nice, it's really fun, and it's fast. In fact, let's get to the private road and I'll do a 0 to 60 and show you how fast it is. 0 to 60 in the Roush Supercharged F-150. I'm in sport mode, traction control's off. I'll do a 4 high auto launch with a brake rev and we'll see what it can do. But keep in mind, density altitude's 5,600 feet. So even though this is supercharged, it's still gonna be down on power. Probably about 7 or 8% at least. And true 0 to 60 came in at 5.14 seconds. Pretty impressive for the size of this truck. And my private road is not a sticky drag strip. We're not at sea level on a cold day. So given all those factors, this was actually a really impressive run. My final thoughts of the Roush Supercharged Apex lifted off-road, F-150 is it's really cool. But these, depending on the configuration, the trim level, and exactly what options you have, these can cost into the 80s and 90, mid $90,000. So they're not cheap. They're more expensive than the base EcoBoost Raptor, but of course this engine is much more impressive than the base EcoBoost Raptor. And it's not quite as expensive as the Raptor R, but for the guy or the gal who has the money to buy one of these, would you personally buy this and save 20 grand over a Raptor R? Or does the resale value make that much of a difference to you? I'm genuinely asking, so comment below. But my overall impressions of it are, it's great. Ford has done such a good job designing their F-150. If they're going to sell 1 million of these a year, and they're going to refresh the generation like every 5 or 6 years, they're really going to have a lot invested into engineering it well for the most part, and having a lot of features, having a lot of options to meet most people's budget, to meet most people's preferences. And I think this one knocks it out of the park. It's extremely luxurious. It's missing a few things I might like to see, like a glass roof, a bigger sliding rear window, just things to help you enjoy the outdoors a little bit more. But honestly, as far as an off-road truck is concerned, this is a really good one, and it's one that I don't have any reservation in recommending. But like usual, I always recommend you test drive what you're interested in, as well as the competition, to make sure that you make the right decision for you. Remember, this one I'll link below. It's at the Goody Motor Group, fantastic group of dealerships, and they have a lot of cool performance cars and enthusiast models especially. But anyways, guys, if you got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts and opinions below. Until next time, I wish you the best. See ya.